Hello, this is Sashiko Live Streaming in English today. It's Wednesday. How are you? I hope you can watch this. Today I'm going to talk about the Atsushi Sashiko project a little bit. The March 11th is the memorial day for the earthquake in Tohoku in Japan. So I'm going to talk about this project a little bit, and then I'll do another Sashiko stitching. I don't think I had any requests today, so I didn't prepare any tutorials or presentation. I will, though, show you the Boro Jacket I wear every time I go to New York. But that's about it. I will talk about the Atsushi Sashiko project a little bit, and then I will talk about my questions, actually, like something I kind of think about right now while I make a stitch. And then I'll show the Boro Jacket. Your comments is very appreciated. It can make this live streaming more meaningful. I will get it. I will accept the questions about Sashiko, so I can make another tutorials in the future. I plan to have the workshop online as well. I am trying my best to organize to offer the same contents as the offline workshop. But it's kind of difficult, so just give me some time, and I hope you get this live streaming. Just a second. Sashiko Live Streaming. I think it's doing fine, right? Okay, I will talk about. Well, why don't I introduce Boro Jacket first? That might be more interesting. Not that Atsushi Sashiko is less important. Let me make sure that I have the Boro Jacket. There we go. I don't wanna splash all my tea. I believe there was a request about the Boro Jacket I was talking about. This is gonna be a little bit difficult view to take a look, but this is the Boro Jacket I wear every day. Not every day. Well, whenever I go to New York City, I try to wear that. Whenever I go out without my daughter, I try to wear that. So I believe this is kind of Boro I can find in the history of Japanese vintage fabric. And we made a jacket shape with patchworking all the vintage fabrics. And this is one of those like a ultimate version of the Boro jacket. If you can take a look at this closer look, it's just simply a worn fabric. It's just simply the worn fabric, which is pretty much junk if you don't find the beauty in it. Well, it's pretty bad. It's ragged, frayed. And inside is more like patchworked more. I believe, as long as I remember, there are about probably more than 50 patches combined together, small to large, more like a lot of patches together to make this jacket. But this is the kind of fundamental Boro. The Japanese in the past, like a few hundred years ago, didn't have enough fabric to make a new jacket. The fabric was very valuable. They couldn't get a lot of new fabric to make a new jackets. So they had to keep using whatever they had, and then they kept mending the jackets and blankets and stuff like that. And that process is called Sashiko, I believe. So Sashiko is not like something you can find as a result. More like Sashiko is the process of stitching to repair, mend, reinforce, and decorate the fabric. And this is one of the jacket we try to recreate based on the culture we can see in, let's say, 300 years ago, 400 years ago. It looks much better in the sunshine, but some of my students said that I should wear this like a reverse. These patches are beautiful, so this should be showing outside. But this is another Japanese culture that we kind of tend to hide those patches. I probably talked about it before, but the Sashiko patching Boro was kind of a sort of a sign of poverty. The more you have patches, that means they were poorer. So they didn't want to really show the patches they had. So this is something we kind of try to recreate. Some of the Boro we can find in the antique market is pretty dirty. Well, no wonder. It's a few hundred years ago. It could be a few hundred years old, and the fact that it has Boro looking means that it is heavily used. Possibly not washed so many times, because washing means getting fabric more weaker sometimes. And if the art dealer or antique dealer find those Boros, they try to not to wash it, because the washing could destroy the Boro and could lose the value in it. So it could be dirty, but we, as the Sashiko artist, my mother and I and our friends, believe that the fabric become fabric after being used. So fabric is great because it's in the usage in the daily life. So I believe this jacket can be like a museum article. It is good as the museum exhibition thing, but we prefer, of course, if they want to have it, that's fine too. But we kind of prefer to wear that instead of exhibit, because it's a jacket. I want them to use that, and this is mine, so I'm not getting out of this. But this is something we are proud of doing. This is something we're proud of in doing Sashiko and mending Boro. Okay, so let me talk about the Atsushi Sashiko. Is anybody interested? Probably. It's kind of heavy story, so I don't want to talk about it if there's not many audience. I will just shift it to the stitching. I'm sorry, I said that I'm gonna talk about the Atsushi Sashiko project, but if you want to hear about it, can you leave the comment, please? So I will do that. But unless if I don't see any comments about the request, I will just move to the stitching today. So you will see my stitching, Sashiko stitching, and I'll have the another questions. Not a questions. How can I put that in English? I have a thought, and I would like to kind of discuss about it. What do people think about those questions? I've done that in Japanese, and it is kind of not an easy question. It's a pretty difficult question. So I'd like to get everybody's thoughts, and that probably help us, like Sashiko or Sashiko fans or Japanese handcrafting fans to inherit those cultures to the next generation. All right, I'll just move to my stitching, and then I will start talking about the questions I have. Well, like, not a question. How can I say that? Like a I'm gonna just raise a voice about that, like about one concept. Sorry. So I will talk about Atsushi Sashiko project if there is a comments about that somebody wants to listen to about it. Otherwise, I'm gonna just start stitching my denim jeans. It is kind of slow today. This is Wednesday, right? This is Wednesday. This is Wednesday. Okay. I didn't want to miss that. I try to have the live streaming of Sashiko stitching every Wednesday at 2 p.m. in Eastern time, like in New York time. Based on the request, I sometimes do a little tiny tutorials, which require some preparation. So I will do that the week after the live streaming. I received the question, so not today. I haven't prepared anything, but it's kind of a good opportunity for anyone who is interested in Sashiko to see how actual Japanese does Sashiko stitching. And please ask me any questions about Sashiko's history, Sashiko's origin. As long as I know, I can answer I can answer those questions in my understanding. There we go. I think there was a little request last week about the Atsushi Sashiko. Well, that was probably me. There was a little bit of request about talking Atsushi Sashiko, but let's skip it if there's no interest in that. Shouldn't have tea next to me. Well, this Sashiko right now, the Sashiko I am doing right now is the mending of the very heavily used denim. It's getting very thin. The fabric itself is getting very thin, so I'm making the Sashiko stitching to make it a little more stronger. Sashiko is developed as the sewing technique in Japan to repair, to mend, to strengthen the fabric, sometimes to decorate the fabric. So it's simply the form of hand needlework, I guess. Yeah, that's how it's supposed to say. It is now implemented to the other kinds of embroidery and anything, quilting, patchworking. So I'm really happy to see those collaborations and also implement application. But originally Sashiko was developed as the way to mend the fabric, not like the repair and strengthen the fabric. which I kind of summarized to appreciate the fabric. Yeah. I was kind of planning to talk about Atsushi Sashiko today, but it's kind of heavy topic to talk about without the actual commenting. Or if you're watching this for the first time, it might be something I would like to avoid to talk about for the first time. So I will not talk about it unless there's the kind of request. If you have any request, please leave the message. I will talk about the Atsushi Sashiko if there's any request in the comments after this live streaming. This is the kind of season of the kind of remembering what happened in the Tohoku, like northeast of Japan, like earthquake. We do still have the project ongoing in there to help local females, mainly elderly females, throughout Sashiko. And my mother is having the exhibition collaborating with that Sashiko project in Japan this weekend. Wow, this weekend. So I just wanted to talk about it a bit, but again, that requires a little bit of courage because it's a sad thing. It was a tragedy. And I keep writing that on my blog and also my newsletters, but this is the online live streaming, not a tutorial. Although I answer the questions with the little tiny tutorials, but I want the viewers to bring their own Sashiko project and stitch in front of the camera. Like, I'm just stitching in front of the camera, so there's not much stuff going on over the camera. I will tell you that if I do something specific or something big. So I just want to have like this kind of time to stitch together. This was my kind of dream to have a small community to stitch together for no specific reasons. Just we stitch to stitch. And I'm so happy that we can do this throughout the internet, over the web. This is the kind of good opportunity because you can just get the answer by asking to me. Thank you for the comments. Let me read that. I cannot read it. Usually the fabric are received for this type of project or they're new. Originally speaking, Sashiko was developed because they couldn't get a new fabric, like a few hundred years ago, like long time in Japan. Like modern Sashiko, you can use pretty much any kind of fabric, even silk, linen, cotton, of course. Any kind of fabric is great. Canvas, denim, and it doesn't matter if it's new or old, but we prefer vintage and used old fabric because the color they have over the time is very beautiful, and Japanese vintage fabric is also very beautiful. It's simply we prefer that. And for the denim, I simply prefer the used one because it's softer. The new denim is very hard to make a stitch, so I just don't prefer that. I hope I answered the question. But I have a very common question I receive. What is the right Sashiko and what is the wrong Sashiko? I probably, if you watched my video so many times, you have been hearing this and you might be tired of this. But in my understanding, there's no such a thing as right Sashiko and wrong Sashiko. You know why? Because the Sashiko was very too ordinary, very common things to do in Japanese culture a few hundred years ago. So there are tons of Sashiko culture. Not a Sashiko. There are very many kinds of culture. Many kinds of Sashiko survived in Japan. So it's kind of difficult to unify all the tradition into one and define what is right and what is wrong. So instead of caring what is the right and what is wrong, I would like to tell how fun it is, how beautiful it can be, how sustainable it is, how beneficial it is in terms of like meditating yourself and mindfulness. So there's no such a thing as like a right sashiko, wrong. If you make sashiko on your shoes, that's perfectly fine. I love that. I love those collaboration with the other cultures. Yeah, when I do sashiko when I'm drunk, I do make a stitch at anything. So, which I don't do anymore, but anything is good. Come on. This is a bad example. I'll show you the bad example. I made about 30 stitches, probably more than 30 stitches at once. Because I made so many stitches at once, I cannot pull the needle out. Oh, I'm sorry, it was not on the camera. This one is probably 30, possibly, and I have to pull it somehow. But it's fairly slippery and come on. So this is the amount I made a stitch right now. And I mean, it's not efficient much if you have to spend that much time. If I have to spend that much time on pulling the needle out. So another. As I said like 5 minutes ago, I just want you to work on your stuff if it's possible. It's the beauty of doing sashiko over the internet. Again, not much thing is going on right now here, so just why don't you bring your stuff and then work on that. Hello Susie, thank you for coming. Because you're not here, what has been kind of quiet. I showed the Boro Jacket a little while ago in the beginning of this live streaming. I hope you can, well, can you rewind this? I can show you a little later after my stitching. I would like to kind of raise a kind of question to, I would like to suggest a question to like think about a little later too. I was planning to talk about Otsushi Sashiko, but it's kind of quiet, so I prefer not to do that unless there's a request. So. Sorry, I made a little mistake here. So I was a little quiet. I talked about Sashiko's history a little bit. I've been talking about it a lot in this YouTube video, but I talked about it. I talked about the Sashiko's history a little bit today too. So Sashiko was developed in the poor area in Japan, like located everywhere in Japan, where the logistics, like infrastructure, was not well developed, which is pretty much everywhere in Japan because there's like a lot of ocean, a lot of mountains. So there are a lot of villages, small town with limited transportation. So many Japanese couldn't have enough fabric from the big city to make a new cloth. So they had to mend, they had to do needlework to make fabric durable, to use fabric. And that was too ordinary for Japanese people to do that, so they didn't have enough awakeness to make it structured art. That's why Sashiko is not like the other Japanese art, such as ikebana, which is flower arrangement, or chanoyu, which is tea ceremony. As long as I know, there's no certification regarding Sashiko, because it's simply the needlework. I mean, there is a certification provided by the like actual companies, but not like organization. So it was very ordinary stitching. Interestingly, that Sashiko was so popular a few hundred years ago, after World War II, after the Industrial Revolution. I'm sorry, how can I say it? I'm sorry. After Industrial Revolution, Japanese people stopped doing Sashiko. It is very understandable, right? Like if they developed the Sashiko to use the fabric longer, and well, they had to do it because they didn't have enough fabric. When they can get enough material, enough fabric with not that much expenses, if they can get it cheaply, they just stopped doing that. That's why Sashiko's culture itself was a little bit, like not even a little bit, almost extinct in the history of Japanese history, especially when the Japan was experiencing the huge economic growth. Not many people did Sashiko, but thanks to those people who tried to inherit Sashiko to the next generation, or who enjoy the Sashiko, we can find some articles, some information about Sashiko, and that's what we have been doing right now. But many other types of Sashiko and many other Sashiko culture have been distinct. It's gone. It's not there anymore because they simply didn't choose to leave it behind. At some places, some small village, people thought that Sashiko and Boro were sign of shame. The more you make Sashiko stitching, the more patches you make, that indicated that how poor that family was. So they didn't want to show what Sashiko was or what Boro was. If I go to some like small village to ask a question about Sashiko, some old ladies said that they don't want to talk about it, or they don't know anything about it. Although I knew that they knew about Sashiko, but they didn't want to share the information because that was very shameful things to do back in Japan. the reason I know so many things about Sashiko is that I was born in the Sashiko family, so I was raised in that family and I was listening to those culture. But it is not like something we as Japanese, like the previous Japanese, my ancestors were proud of. They were proud of what they created. I believe that they did everything they could to make the fabric more beautiful, but it was also necessary, forced job that the women had to do in the family. So my question is this. I'm talking a lot. I hope my English is good enough to communicate. My question is, do we create culture or do culture form by itself? This is my question. I stopped doing the Sashiko. I'm gonna make this one smaller. And then put it here. So you can watch my stitching as well as the question. So my question is, do we as a human being create culture, or do culture form by itself? I know exact sentence in my mind in Japanese to communicate this one better, but my point is, do we have to try to do we protect culture to be the culture, or do we call something it remains the form by itself culture? And so that's my question. Like, we called this stitching Sashiko. Did somebody try to protect this culture, or did this Sashiko culture form with itself because it just simply survived through the 200 years or 300 years? This is my question, and there's no answer for that. I'm sorry. I'm not expecting to get an answer for this, because this has been my question over almost 10 years. But there are a lot of people who enjoy Sashiko, and that's why probably the Sashiko is now getting popular everywhere. But that means, like, if the Sashiko didn't become popular, was this about to be extinct? Or do we have a choice, or do we have responsibility to keep this culture as the culture? It is very difficult to protect one culture, especially those like inefficient, unproductive culture, to the next generation, because current society is very much focused on the speed and productivity. And I'm perfectly fine with that. I'm sorry to say that, but I enjoy the Amazon. I enjoy the like mass production and mass consumption as well, because it is pretty convenient. Without that, the life can be a little bit more complicated. But are we really fine with that? And I, after, like, when I have to answer these questions, I stood thinking, we as the customer and we as the provider both have to be smart. The smart doesn't mean that like education wise, but think a bit, just to think a little bit before we actually do something. Especially, and for example, not especially, for example, when you purchase, let's say, a Sashiko thread, you will have a lot of choice right now. It can be from me, it can be from any company, there are a lot of online store, there are a lot of retail store. If you're buying from retail store, that's perfectly fine. Like, if you're buying from Pearl Soho in New York, or the other crafting store that is supporting those small crafting store, not a small, I'm sorry, Pearl is not small. So that's perfectly fine. If you're buying from online, if you're buying from actual manufacturers, that's really good. That's really fine. I do not have any preference for that. But I just want you to be careful. Sometimes you're buying from just a broker who happen to realize that some of the product is just selling well. And that doesn't really contribute to any of the culture we would like to protect. So by being just a little bit ignorance, just a little bit of ignorance for saving, let's say, 2 cents, you might just cooperate to the culture to be vanished. And I just don't want that happen. Since you like Sashiko and watching this video or live streaming, so you're a very thoughtful person. I mean, reckless person who only care about money will not look at this video. It's not. Don't do Sashiko if you want to make money. Seriously, this is just time consuming, as you know. I really care about the kind of human's concept, not a concept, the way of thinking. And I think Sashiko can contribute to that, so I'm trying to kind of advocate what I can think of. But anyway, I'm sorry, like I missed Susie's comment. I'm reading out. I read it out. I think we are who we are. Culture is just a name we put on what we do. I don't think we do it to keep it going. We do it because we like it. Very true. So many people today don't want to think. They just want the easy way. Yes, very true. Most things come from a broker. We hardly even know whom. Yes, that's something I really like to change a bit. Even a bit. Like, Susie is right. Very right. I agree with her. Culture is something we choose, I guess. I mean, this is not something I can answer right now. I mean, this. I'm sorry, but I've been thinking about this for 10 years, because I was making my life, I was paying my check, my bills with doing Sashiko, so it was really difficult to think about Sashiko as the business and Sashiko as the culture. So no, it's still difficult for me to think. But one thing I want to go through is that, like, something I want to tell throughout Sashiko is not only the technique or not only the patterns or how to make stitching. You can learn that. I mean, I'm 100% happy to share whatever I have. However, on top of that, I like to kind of contribute to the society. Like, I just want people to be a little bit more mindful. Not even think. I just want them to realize what they're doing. There's so many things that it's not even complicated much, but some smart people, I mean, the kind of, like, how can I say, not as smart, are badly smart. How do we call that? I don't know that word. They make a system and they kind of trip the customers get into the easiest system to make easy money. So well, yeah, like the Susie's comment is kind of interesting. It is a place where you can buy from the maker and Amazon is not. It is likely so, but sometimes Etsy has a, broker too, and Amazon has a maker too. So it's not 100%, like, it's not always like that, and it is okay like that. Unless, so it's not a problem of media, which is Etsy. It's not a problem of platform. I'm not saying Amazon is bad. I'm not saying Etsy is better than Amazon. I'm saying the kind of mindset of customer and seller. I mean, the seller's purpose is to make money, to sell. So it's kind of more like the people who purchase the product, the mindset of the people who purchase the product. But if you think of something, like, you can probably understand what, like, if one person spent a little bit of time, and a little bit, like 5 minutes and let's say 10 cents of time and money, they can contribute to the culture, or contribute to the living the culture, or supporting the artist, or supporting the actual manufacturer, by spending a little bit of time, little bit of money. This is something I kind of want to say as a summary, but I believe that many people buy things from Amazon. When you go to Amazon and when you buy something, I just would like to kind of try to check who is selling that product. I have been doing that, and it's kind of interesting. Well, if Amazon is selling, it's, Amazon is a broker, so it's nothing we can control about it. And if it's cheaper by 10%, then there's nothing we can do about it too. Well, there's things we can do, but 10% is kind of hard. So I understand that I probably will choose 10% cheaper version. But my point is, they sell like a 1 cent difference, but from different seller. And one seller is completely out of the category, yet selling one product because the product is selling well. And the other seller, which is probably like a cent more expensive than the others, is selling the category of that, like, can be the professional. I'm sorry, I will be right back. Yes. I'm sorry. Ay. Mail. Sorry about that. Anyway, I'm sorry. Most people are not mindful in everything they do. I think most people who are overweight is because they are not mindful in that. Yeah, well, I don't know. I mean, I cannot agree with that, because I gained 20 pounds. I mean, not even 20 pounds, like more like 30 pounds after my daughter. I was not pregnant. I'm a father, yet I gained almost 20 kilograms after the baby. So I cannot talk about the weight. And I don't want to talk about the weight. But it is not that difficult to be mindful. It is not at all. Just spend a little bit of time, which is like probably 10 seconds, and then we can just do a lot of things better. And I'm not saying like we should be mindful every time. It is kind of unrealistic, but that's why I want to enjoy Sashiko a little more, because Sashiko is very good way to be mindful. When you get used to this stitching, you don't even have to think what you're stitching right now, because your hand, the muscle memory will keep moving your hand. So, but you cannot do anything else. Well, you can watch TV if you want, but you don't want to watch TV all the time. So when you make Sashiko stitching in the quiet, in the silence, your brain started being mindful a bit. So that's really good. the reason I have a lot of those thoughts that I want to get answered and I want to talk about, because I do Sashiko and I think a lot during that. And that's good. Oh my gosh. That's good. I mean, Japanese are kind of like, generally speaking, Japanese are very familiar with meditation. The Zen or those mindfulness was the part of their not their our culture. So it is very natural to adopt the way of thinking, mindfulness. So I think Sashiko was and is pretty easy to accept it or adjust it to the Japanese culture. And it is interesting that many Western culture people are now enjoying Sashiko, which means there's probably needs for this needlework. It is very simple. It is super, super simple. But why do people keep doing that? I think there's something else but besides stitching. I'll just read the comments again. Please leave any comments. Like, I want you to enjoy this. I mean, I want you to be the part of this community. So you might be kind of shy, but leaving the comments can make you be the part of the community. I want to make this live streaming where nobody judge each other and nobody like Western people. I mean, I'm sorry, I'm calling Western people, but Japanese also value the something in between concept, like gray, black. The more I live in the America, the US, the more I feel we tend to have black or white, correct, wrong, right, wrong, yes or no. Those kind of not a two-dimensional, black or white thinking. I want to introduce the mindset of not making that judgment. So right or wrong, doesn't matter. Either you like it or not, or you kind of feel comfortable or not. So I would like to keep this community like a judgmental free, simply welcoming everybody. Although I kind of propose a lot of questions, but it doesn't mean that I'm judging somebody. I'm just saying, like, I'm just advocating some of the thinking I have. I'm gonna read out the Suji's comment. Being is mindful is just what you said. You just want to do it. There is an effort, and people don't want to do the effort. I think in the older times, the women would sit together and talk while stitching Sashiko. They did. At the same times, that was their kind of nice time to do it. It was more like the house chore for Japanese people, Japanese women, female. So they felt very ashamed if they couldn't do a good Sashiko and ask the mother-in-law. So it was more like the private, like in-house work, but sometimes they had a little community, I would say, to do Sashiko together. So Sashiko has two aspects for that. One is the needlework to enjoy, express themselves to be unique, like a fashion. At the same time, more like the house chore to somewhat survive the severe winter or severe economy or like difficult life. It was pretty bit difficult, I would say. And women was not respected much. I'm sorry to say that, but like that was the Japanese culture is pretty men dominated culture still. So women was not easy to live, and they wanted to do something, and that's probably one of those. I'm sorry. My point that Sashiko went almost extinct is interesting because American quilt was also created in poverty, but we treasure the craft. It is very interesting to see that. I mean, Japanese didn't extinct thanks to those people who try to preserve it. But this explains. There are tons of Japanese traditional art or craft which Japanese government certificated. Sashiko is not one of those. There's the Japanese traditional craft such as rook, like those, the liquid from the tree. Come on, I should learn that. Or like those wooden work. There are a lot of Japanese traditional craft which has the Japanese culture, Japanese government stamp on it. Like, you are Japanese treasure, down. Sashiko is not one of those. So if I have a teacher who I have not met, I know her over the book. Her name is Eiko Yoshida. I respect her. I do respect her. She's gone already. She has deceased kind of long ago. I have never met her, but without her, I don't think this kind of Sashiko is here. No. I love your sewing and you enjoy both. Thank you so much. Yes, that's what I kind of do. Like, keep talking and making Sashiko stitching. And Susie kind of recommended to do it. I do it anyway. Like, without this camera, I make stitching every day anyway. So I just do it in front of the camera and just talking non-stop. Thank you so much for the comment. And Susie's comment. However, when hand sewing all over was not popular, quilting suffered, but technology has made kits so much nicer and easier to make quilt. Yes. So it is really interesting how cultures survive, right? Oh, don't worry about the typo. It's really easy to see the culture. There are not many, but I know many friends who enjoy Sashiko in Japan, but none respect Sashiko machine. None. I have never met any Japanese friend who likes Sashiko and using Sashiko machine. Every single person I know who I respect and who I'm friend with who enjoy Sashiko enjoy the hand stitching. So there are Sashiko machines available in the market, but I don't know anybody who is using that. And they kind of hate it. Hate might be a too strong word, but they kind of, I think they hate machines Sashiko more than I do. I don't care. I don't mind this Sashiko machine at all. But how can we get the government to add Sashiko to the endorsement? The endorsement is the word. Thank you. I researched that. I tried to do it 2010, like when I was working for Sashiko. I tried to do that. I even went to the government office to ask what is the requirement. They have to see that the Japanese those art is formed, organized as the union, or those, like, one organization has to be established to protect or to perform that craft in one area. So let's say if it's in Tokyo, there gotta be a Tokyo Sashiko organization or such. But it is, like, my conclusion is it's very difficult to get endorsement from the government, because the Sashiko in each location in Japan is so different. So it's so different. That's why they cannot even like make one big Sashiko organization. And there are not many people who practice that yet. They are interested in that, but it's not like the product material. And after all, this is like very extreme opinion. But my opinion, Sashiko is not a product or craft or even art. Ew. I might get a little bit of comments for that, but I do, in my understanding, Sashiko is not a product or craft or art. Sashiko is a process of doing this needlework, and the result, we can call it Sashiko cushion, Sashiko whatever, but I kind of like, I want to use Sashiko as the verb instead of the noun, like cook. Cooking is not like actually, well, cooking is a cooking, but so, and Boro is the result of Sashiko. That's kind of, it's extreme, but that's my understanding of Sashiko. So, and that is why it is very difficult to get a Japanese endorsement, unless, well, but it's so different. Like, even in the same Sashiko, one Sashiko looks like the Scandinavian embroidery. We call it kogin and hishizashi, and one looks like very much like the Indian kaltha. I'm sorry if I'm pronouncing wrong. Kantha, I guess. And one is just simple running stitch. So it is kind of difficult to structure the product, and yeah, that's kind of difficult. I sometimes use this example, but is there any endorsement from the government for the making cheese and mac and cheese? Is there any mac and cheese endorsement? Like, is there any, like, how can I say that? Any right or wrong pizza? You know, any kinds of pizza is good, right? Like, there is a like, nasty pizza and delicious pizza, but there's no such a thing as right pizza and wrong pizza. Correct? I guess. It's kind of like, it's that ordinary for Japanese. It was that ordinary for Japanese people. So it was not even art. It was not even craft. It was just the daily things to do. Like, somebody might be very good at washing the dishes. Well, that's probably the same thing. I'm sorry, I kind of got the comment, but I think Amalia is not going yet. I think she just corrected the previous sentence to see you. She's not saying see you so soon. And I think Susie wanted to say bye Amalia to the comments you mentioned to see you. But buy become like a purchase. So it doesn't mean anything, I guess. So my point is pretty simple for this question. Do we create culture? Do culture form by itself? I just want the customers and buyers to be a little more mindful. And I'm saying this because I had a pretty bad week for that. And you know, I'm very much human. I'm not like a Buddhist at all. I have a lot of greed. I have a lot of, jealous. I'm not a good monk person. But like last week, I have an Amazon shop, and the last week, 2 shops joined the Sashiko thread market, and they started selling the Sashiko thread like cheaper than our shop. They don't probably know anything about Sashiko, but they started selling that. And I kind of started competing the price to get the better looking, but it came to the like point that I cannot make enough profit to keep doing that, and I stopped doing it. And that's kind of like, okay, I think this is something I cannot do anything. This is something what buyer has to think of. And then I started thinking about, do I think when I buy things? Then I started researching what I do. And I then started thinking, being mindful, and then I just created this kind of. I gotta talk about this on YouTube. I hope it makes sense. Sorry, I'm gonna get back to this comment. America Quilting went through our love-hate time with machine quilting. Really? That's interesting. I would like to learn that. Now that machine quilters have made such advancement and beautiful quilts that the hand quilters have had to accept machine quilting as an art. Oh, wow, that is so fascinating. I'd like to learn that too. Do I know anybody who's doing hand quilting? I think many of my students do a lot of machine quilting. But again, like Sashiko and quilting is very can learn each other a lot. So I'm open to any suggestion and even collaboration for that matter. That is interesting. But again, like Sashiko's machine is not getting popular in Japan. I don't know somewhere else, but not in Japan. At all. I've been in the Sashiko field for more than 10 years now. And I've seen Sashiko machine in 2010 or so. In Holland, in the Netherlands. But I have not seen anything like that in Japan. That's interesting though. Alright, it has been 1 hour. I will go off the line in 20 minutes or so. Any requests I can do for next week? If there's a request, I can make little tiny tutorials and then it's gonna be a next time's topic. Otherwise, I'm gonna talk about whatever I want, like, this kind of silly questions to get answered, because there's no such a thing as correct answer, or I just keep stitching. So please give me a request if you have any, and then I can work on that. If not, I'll do another stitching next week. Thank you so much for watching it. Again, like, I thought nobody would be interested in this kind of just stitching, like, literally, simply, I'm just stitching, right? You're kind of interesting person because you're just hearing me talking while watching somebody's making a stitch. So, anyway, since there are 7 people, and I kind of stitched whole, like, I finished the thread. I did explain the Boro in the beginning, but let me do that again. Right now I can get more questions, so it might help to explain better. Alright. So this is the Boro jacket I wear in New York when I do the workshop. And the camera might not film it very well, but let's see. And I'll just take off this question board. There we go. However, hand quilters think of machine quilters as a subcategory. There's not a sisterhood, but there's not the hate there once was. That's good. So it's kind of like a different field. Yeah, I might take that Sashiko machine like that. I don't necessarily feel very related to the Sashiko machine, but at the same time, I don't hate it. It's okay. They're just different. So this is the Boro jacket, and this we believe that this was what the Japanese a few hundred years ago was making. You want to see the front? This is the front. This is the front. just not showing well. And this is like a Japanese culture. We try to hide the patches. So every patches you can see is kind of inside of the jacket. And this is the front, this is the outside. And I'll just zoom it. But it's very much worn. Kind of damaged so badly that it's not forming the fabric itself. But we kind of use the thread to form the fabric. Is it? You can see that it's not good. Whenever I have a time outside, I'll take a video about this. But and again, this is the kind of, we try to recreate what the Japanese used to make. We probably use more than 50 patches, more than 50 small swatches to make one big piece. Every, like, the different color means different patches, and the most thick layer would be about 5 layers. It's not thick. The most numbers of layer, the numbers of layer, at most, in some part we use the 5 layers or so. And at some part you see the thick thread, some part you see the thin thread. We use the only one kind of Sashiko thread. We either take single thread or double thread to make the differences. Sometimes double thread is too strong for the Boro. So thread damage, thread destroy the fabric, so we have to be careful. Sometimes we have to use the double thread to keep it together. This is inside, this is more like a hem. Yeah, it's not the best table to take a look, but it is a wearable jacket, and I believe, and my mother also believed, that Boro, or either Sashiko Boro, are the Boro or Sashiko become Sashiko or Boro when people use that. It will show the most beauty in the using situation. Again, like, it's okay. I'm perfectly fine being I'm perfectly fine by the fact that these items is being displayed in the exhibition or museum. That's perfectly fine. But at the same time, we want our product to be worn, product to be used by somebody who understands the value. So if you use this jacket for, let's say, 5 years, you will be most likely to get a hole or some worn part. It's not a sad thing, because we will just fix it again. We kept doing the Sashiko this far. It's not that bad to add another. And that repetition will make this Boro more unique. Yep, that's about the Boro. I think so. Some culture, some translation, some interpretation in Boro is more like a patchwork. It's perfectly fine as well. It's more like Japanese sushi versus sushi in, like, alphabet. It's perfectly fine. They're not the same, but that's perfectly understandable in the translating or interpreting the Sashiko and Boro. But for me, Boro is more like not a patchwork, more like a mending. You kind of have to put the fabric to mend to make it more strong. As a result, it becomes beautiful. Some people say that Boro is the beauty from Atlantum, unexpected beauty. I think that's kind of the women's, like, guts, women's feeling that they wanted to put into the fabric. They wanted to be unique, although there were very limited amount of fabric. They wanted to do something unique, something enjoyable. That's why they tried to do that. I'm talking a lot. It's interesting that in Sashiko that the patches are in the side and the quality. It is very interesting. Whenever I bring that to my workshop in New York City, everybody say, why? Why isn't that patch outside? Like, you should probably do that next time. I probably should. if I'm trying to sell that in the US market, but it is the difference. It's just merely the difference. Suzy, I'm sorry, I cannot pronounce your name correctly. Suzy is from Arizona, I believe. Arizona, right? I'll show the front side of this jeans before I go. I'll do a Sashiko a little more, like let's say 10 more minutes, and I'll go. It was another good day. Yes, I believe that Suzy is from Arizona. Did I get your email? Nope. I'll check that. Sorry, I don't remember. I don't recall that. Last week I was today? Yesterday. I've been pretty busy since last week till yesterday, so I may have missed that. I'm sorry. I'll try to. Did you send it to Gmail or my? I'm sorry. After this jeans Sashiko stitching, it can be next month, but I'll try to do the jeans mending, which is a little bit different from the Sashiko stitching. I have a great jeans, which is mine again. Had a pretty nice hole like this. It was my favorite. Now it has a hole like here. Bye. So I'll work on that next time. Well, after this. This might take a little longer to finish. Oh my gosh, it's a lot of stitching that I have to do. Okay, I'll be ending this live streaming within 10 minutes or so. So if you have any questions, please leave the comments so I can answer that question next week with little tutorials if necessary. Do you hear this sound? I love this sound. When the thread goes to the fabric. That's so nice. I wouldn't sleep with this sound. There we go again. Did you hear that? Oh, come on. Come on. Is anybody wants to look at the closer look at my stitching? Kind of like a broader view, but if you want to see the zoom up of my stitching, I can do that. I mean, I can try to do that. It's not a secret at all, so. That's interesting. I was supposed to receive the package today. Yes. I will show the other side of pants before I sign off. Yes. Give me 5 more minutes. Give me time to finish this much length of thread. I will show that. That's it. Of course I will show that. I did not get a hole in the pocket. It was the kind of my not like closer to my bottom. I always get the hole on knees too. I did already. It's another hole. Like the hole on the knee can be ignored for several weeks, right? But if I have to show my underwear to everybody, then I gotta probably start mending that. It's pretty delayed, huh? There's a bit of time lag. It's okay. Ski. Oops. Come back. Okay, I'll double check, Susie. I will double check that email address. I'm sorry about that. How much delay does this live streaming have? On my computer, it doesn't have that much delay. Almost. Yes, thank you for waiting. I am almost done. I mean, not done, but I'm done for today. So I'll just show the other side of this pants. Just a second. Okay. Can you take a look? Is it showing? The side I was working on was this side. And I'm gonna make it as an whole pattern, so I would start doing a little tiny loop too. Thank you. This is like one of the first denim I started working on, so it has a lot of patches already. This was one of the first kind of patch I made. And there's a hole here. So I patched some of the indigo dyed cotton fabric to make a stitching like this. And there's a little Sashiko fabric underneath of this. So on the front side, it's like this too. And I think popular part of the the mending is here, the knee side, knee part. This is also good too. Do your toes get caught in the little long? Do your toes get caught in the little loops inside? I don't think so. And little loops. You mean these little loops? And some of these loop will be cut off by making kasane. Most of the loop I try to get rid of that after finishing it. Just try to find the YouTube video with this title, Kasane. That's how we kind of stop the thread on the fabric. So once I do Kasane, the thread kind of stops. So I do not leave. Well, I leave some of the loops when I cannot do it, but usually I do cut it off after that. For example, this loop will be cut off because I made the Kasane here. Not a here, here. Yeah, who is here? Sometimes my Japanese kicks in. Okay, the question is, this is like a lagging in 2 minutes. Wow, 2 minutes is pretty big lag. Wow. Next time when you pull the thread too hard, will you? Yes, I can do that next time. But which is pretty much redoing everything I did. But yeah, how to fix it when pulled too much. All right. How long you can last for doing a project jacket? How long? How long you can last for doing a project? Can you re-question that, Amalia? I'm sorry, I didn't get the question. The Kasane, is Kasane backstitching? Yes, backstitching and overlay stitching. It is not only backstitching. So Kasane is like more like backstitching, overlay stitching, double stitching. There are a lot of way to call it, so I just don't kind of use that. I kind of say Kasane, so we all can kind of understand on the same page. The jacket I showed today, the Boro jacket, took 18 months to finish. I don't know how long I can wear that for because I will keep mending it. So pretty much unlimited, I would say. Alright, it's about time to go. Please leave the comments if you have any questions so I can answer right now or next time I'm online. Let me open one package I got. So today's work was like this much. Not this much, this much, but like this. This was not expected. Alright, thank you so much for watching. I will see you next Wednesday at 2 p.m. Eastern Time. Eastern Time is New York time, US. And again, if you have any questions, please leave the comments on this video or anywhere else. As long as I can see it, it's anyways fine. And I will make a video or tutorials to answer your question or support the answers. I hope you enjoyed this live stitching. It was a great 90 minutes of me just stitching and talking about like my shenanigans, but that's beautiful. That's what I want. So I hope you have a great week. Thank you so much for watching and see you next week. Thank you for everybody. Thank you.